Good evening, everybody. Good evening to all the racers, and it's a pleasure to welcome you all to St. Pete, especially those of you who come from a little further afield. I'm going to give you one wee nugget of history, mainly talk about the Havana, and a wee nugget of history at the end. Thank heavens you have better charts than these to find Havana. There was a brief spell when Florida was actually British, and 252 years ago, St. Petersburg was put on the map by a Scotsman. George Gould. Now this is east is up, so it doesn't look quite like how you're used to seeing Tampa Bay, but there's a little notation. If you can work out where St. Pete is, something has been written by George Gould, who was dispatched by the British Navy to chart the Gulf Coast. It actually says, you can see the wee round lake, which is Mirror Lake, fresh water. It says, a pretty good place for a settlement. Now, how many of you knew that St. Pete had been founded by a Scot way back then, 252 years? That is our waterfront that our city fathers expanded to create these wonderful parks. Okay, the Havana race, what did it mean to the local people? It was huge when we had a pier to look at it. And the folk were out there. I'm not getting political. I've watched that pier come down. We live in hope for another one. Okay, now you can see what I'm doing. Okay, the folk are out there. And these wonderful boats, back in the 30s, and even by 20 years later, by 1957, there's a huge progression in the development of the sailboats. We had a pier. Now, when you come back next year, this is what the waterfront will look like, with our newest building. And I think many of you will agree that George Gould had it right. It's a pretty good place for a settlement. So that's your wee nugget of history. Okay, 1927 or 28, Gidge Gandy cruised down to Havana. Havana had a certain appeal in those days. You could drink wine here, but you couldn't drink liquor, hard liquor. So there was an extra appeal about going to Havana. Anyway, our three heroes were Gidge Gandy, whose granddaughter, Kim O'Brien, I believe, is here tonight. And he was a promoter. His dad had built a cinema for 1,200 people years earlier, when there probably weren't even that number of people in the town. He wrote to everybody he knew who had a connection with sailing, and if he didn't get a flat out no, he wrote again and told them they had to come. This was his design for the second race, and you can see a similarity with our new one. The second hero is Lou McMasters, who was the 1930 Commodore of this club, aged 28. Looks a little older, aged 28. Now, Gidge sailed in a couple of races. Lou participated in every Havana race, either as skipper or as navigator. And of course, from Cuba, Commodore Rafael Poso from the Habana Yacht Club. And here he is handing out a prize to a past Commodore of this club after one of the races. So it was these three men who really put this race on the map. This is the 1930 party. I only got this the other day from Lou McMaster's son, John McMaster, who is here with his sister Martha, and they're both crewing in the race. And this came from Lou McMaster's scrapbook. And I have to say, I am absolutely sure you all have your tuxedos packed for the first party. And these are the ladies going down in 1959. And I sincerely hope all the ladies have got their white gloves. Okay. St. Petersburg had a member, Ray Kendall Williams. And the story goes, he was a professional photographer, and the story goes that he really could not afford the yacht club dues, and that an enlightened Commodore, who I like to think was Lou McMasters, said to him, okay, give us an album of photographs for every Havana race and we will count that as your dues. Consequently, we have over 300 photographs, black and white, that have all been digitized. They're now in books, and it is a marvelous collection. The Yacht Club is extraordinarily fortunate to have it. So here we have Mr. Allen from Miami. I remember people sailing in the 50s in coat and tie. He photographed the skippers, Jack Hanna, and of course we had numerous Cuban skippers who were here too. The skippers collected outside the club on various occasions. This whole endeavor is a jigsaw. I've all these photographs, all these faces. People have written on the back of some of them. They put dates, they put names. Some are right, some are wrong, and it is ongoing. If you see any that you disagree with or you think I'm wrong, please get in touch. Let me know, because I need to know. Thank you. And of course, again, the Cubans there were many of them that came on a very regular basis. We get into the 50s and we get every name there. Carlton Mitchell, George Hinman, Richard Bertram, Bobby Sinette, and Chuck Alma. These are hallowed names in sailing circles, and they were all here for the Havana race. This is Gidge Gandy's first crew in 31, and Lou McMaster's crew in 31, and Francis Wagner. Now, he also sailed in the 1930 race, and I did a talk at the museum last May. His granddaughter was there, and she brought me this medal to show me, which I believe in those days you all got a medal. I'm not sure anyone now, but you all got a medal if you raced in 1930. And this was her grandfather's. He photographed the crews. We have a few on board ship, and you can really see what they're wearing. And you know, they just look like an everyday bunch of sailors. But the gear has changed. Doc Jennings, John Jennings' father, and of course we have Dick Winning, Richard's father, who was the Commodore in 1959, and it makes all the more special that Richard has got this event up and running again this time. And they came from far afield. As I said, both Gidge Gandy and Lou McMasters were also members of the Cruising Club of America, which stretches over the whole of the US, and gave them an awful lot of yachtsmen to whom to write, and many of them did come. There's a young man on the right here you might recognize, our one and only Charlie Morgan. This was his first. Aged about 18, learned a lot about sailing, learned a lot about rum, and I believe we have 2 high school girls going on this trip. Look what it did for Charlie Morgan. Good luck to the girls. Now that we have the internet, the Yacht Club gets emailed pretty regularly about, oh, I think my grandfather sailed in the Havana race, or somebody did. And very often I can actually send them a photograph of their grandfather or of the crew. And this young man who was asking about this one, he was able to give me the names. Again, I just try and put faces to the names and sort out just who everybody is. This is 1950, Lou McMasters is at it again. Whoops. And again in 53 with Roland Becker and people who were all very involved with the Southern Ocean Racing Conference. And about one of the last of the Ray Kendall Williams photographs includes our own Jerry Hamill, who was regaling me with more stories in the bar at the Havana race last Friday night. So if you see Jerry, do have a word with him because he remembers it well. Okay, the boats, goodness gracious, 1930, these were not big boats. They were fairly little boats for going that kind of distance. The famous Haligonian that set the record, maybe somebody will make a record on Tuesday that will, whether it'll last for 7 years, we'll have to wait and see. But they got bigger. Commodore Matheson from Biscayne Bay Yacht Club brought a Zara up in 34. Valerie Wishbone Kett, she went on to win Bermuda races and transatlantic races. And of course, this is early in the season, thinking in terms of up north. So you have a boat, you want to test it, they brought them down here to do the Havana race. The development was huge. I mean, Sparkman and Stevens are right in there. This was the first one with aluminium masts and rod rigging and just a whole lot of stuff. They were developing so fast. 1941, first SORC. They added another race in 35 and various other races. So from 41 to 1988, the SORC was here. My personal favorite photograph, which I think rivals anything Rosenfeld took that's mystic. We were still having some schooners, this guy from Detroit, and of course the absolutely legendary Carlton Mitchell, who went on to win numerous Bermudas and write the wonderful books about the Caribbean. Okay, this was a negative, just turn up, just a negative, nothing on it, no date. This might be the first Havana group ready to go, I'm honestly not sure. And the other little nugget of history that I will throw in, the Havana race ended in 1959, but the SORC continued. And this year, I love this one, it's the birth of the Bayfront Tower, but you can see all the boats that were here. There were so many that came for that event. And of course, Charlie Morgan's absolutely famous Paper Tiger, who won SORC in 1961. They were not going to let her race from Annapolis to Bermuda because they said, fiberglass, it might fall apart, rust, whatever. Of course she did. And here they are with all the trophies, and again, Lumet Masters is there on the board of SORC. They did good, and that led to the yacht building that came to St. Pete. It just opened it up. And the big boats came. And this is one of my favorite photographs, because it was when men wore shorts and actually had legs. You could see their legs. I love that photograph. But the big boats and the big boys came. Ted Turner, Warren Brown, the boats were changing, rail meet became the standard. You know, this was one of the boats in '87, the second last year that the SORC was here. I'm not quite sure I really want to go to sea in that, but that was the way the trends were going, and '88 was the last year. But I just want to say again, SORC for this club was absolutely huge. I remember a past Commodore, not going to say who, telling me that there was so much money coming into the club and into the bar, they almost didn't know what to do with it. But it was a big event for the city as well. Forgive me, I should emphasize that too. It was huge for St. Pete. So here we are with a beautiful new logo, ready to go again. This was the Club Nautico in 1956. Now if you look carefully along the ridge of the hill, you can see a big dome up at the top. Here it is 4 years ago, taken by Tom Wallace, and the dome is still there, and that is, we're now in colour, and you're going to see Havana in colour. This is one of the famous boats actually leaving Havana. I am green with envy that I'm not coming to. I have to be somewhere else on Friday, sadly, but I wish all of you that are going, please take photographs, bring them back. There's a couple of requests out there. I will be on the dock tomorrow afternoon between 2 and 5. I'd like to get photographs of the crews and the skipper and the boat, and I'll be out in a boat on the start on Tuesday and hopefully taking some more pictures. But I'd like you all to bring some back, and please, I will credit you if you tell me who took it and who's in it and what the boat is. I'd appreciate that enormously. And for all of those of you who are going, I simply say fair winds, Godspeed, and go and make some history.